Back to behavioral finance and fintech. Last time we just entered behavioral corporate finance. There we talked about the cases when the shareholders and the outside investors go crazy, whereas the CEOs and CFOs, they are rational to take advantage of the situation. Catering hypothesis was there, right? And market timing was there as well. This time we're going to talk about the situation when the CEO himself or herself are irrational, getting away from the rational benchmark. And we are assuming the shareholders are rational, so that they would be, pricing these crazy CEOs in a certain way. Too much crazy, the share price goes down. Okay, that's what's going on over here. So let me shrink down. Oh yeah. All right. Neoclassical Economics. CEO is just another easily replaceable input of production function. That's their approach, their basic idea about the people. You're just another input to production function. Cobb-Douglas production function, you must have seen it, right? The Cobb-Douglas production function, well, whatever you produce, right, is just a multiplication of productivity coefficient and times labor and capital, K, das Kapital. And labor, you have exponent alpha, capital, you have exponent of 1 minus alpha. L to the power of alpha, K to the power of 1 minus alpha. All right? And then CEO is just another input to this production function, easily replaceable, right? It's like a 부속품 or component. You are just a robot. And that's it. Okay, fine. The behavioral finance guys say no. Each and the traits of the CEOs, right? Each and every CEOs, they have unique feature in it, and it's not replaceable easily. Okay, we are unique human beings, right? Don't you agree? Yeah. Why don't you agree with that? It's a reality. And previously, it was not provable because the data was not there. But nowadays, we have big data so that we are able to prove that and then show it, each uniqueness of the CEOs with their traits going on there. We now test and see that unique characteristics of the CEOs matter, and they are not easily replaceable. Sometimes they are not even rational. That irrationality is one valid characteristic. Okay. Before we move on further, let me add one more thing over here, because it has a lot to do with our own unique culture in SKKU, Seongyungwan University, which is Asia's oldest university, because it was established in 1398 in Joseon Dynasty. If you think Asia's oldest university is Beida or Tsinghua or Tokyo Daigaku, no way, come on. This is Joseon Dynasty's, highest level education institute that is supposed to serve the government, right? The serve as a government official supporting the king, right? So it's the highest education institution over here. Has been there. Now we have in Asia, whenever we select any people, talent, right, to a certain position like CEOs or a position of a rookie position, we have 4 different criteria in Asia, which is what? Shin, On, Se, Pan in Korean pronunciation. Or in Chinese, it would be like Shan, Yuan, Shu, Pan. Yeah, it's the same thing, right? What does it mean? Well, Shin means like what? Appearances and body. Okay, so how you show up. Does it matter? Well, neoclassical finance guy would say, no, you're just a robot. You can be easily replaceable. Like you're just a robot or a component, or like a bolt and nut. Get away from me, right? But behavioral finance guys say what? Each and every individual is unique and valuable in its own way. Isn't it more humane? That's why I like about behavioral finance. And then height over here, right? They say what? It has to do with overconfidence. And then taller guys, their life experience has been, having more confidence in whatever their life situations, so that they become more overconfident, and it shows up in their management style if the CEO is taller, right? Facial masculinity is one thing that one very interesting part of the research that I'm into. Okay, I've been into, and the bone. Okay, it has to do with the facial bone structure, and your testosterone level is related to this one. And there has been a series of papers and research going on about it. And then we're going to talk about it extensively in my class later. Wait for that. Facial expression also matters. It's informative about, the insider information, right? It affects the stock price, okay? We're going to go through that part later on, so wait for that. It is important for your perspective as well, because you guys are going to experience a lot of video-based interviews to get jobs, right? They use higher view kind of software or Midas IT kind of software to look into you, right? Those confidence and then the positive facial expression in your face matters a lot. And that's why emphasizing so much about business communication. Okay, it's not just about the numbers. It's about your facial expression and then voices and all these kind of gestures that matters. Shin matters there. Okay, it's a spoken language. Voice pitch matters, right? Carries about the information about your risk preference. I have a paper about it. I'm going to talk about it later, so wait for that one. Overconfidence. If you analyze the transcript of the CEO interviews on CNBC, that shows up. I have a paper about it, published, okay, already. And then the narcissism also shows up in your use of language. Text mining is helpful, right, to understand the CEO's character. How does that affect our FinTech? Tell me, Andy, how it is related to the FinTech, please. Well, you can apply this thing into your own FinTech business later on, okay? Kakao Talk, you have a whole lot of transcript of communication there. This is why the Kakao Bank is such a very formidable competitors for the existing banks, right? And then for existing banks, you guys have tremendous source of information, which is you have customer division. You receive a lot of phone calls, and then the messages from the investors, like depositors, and then the insurance plan holders, their complaints, right? They phone ringing, right? And then they say something about you. You have that voice files and then the transcript, right? Informative about the risk profile of the individuals. Very helpful. Why don't you analyze it and use it for your benefit? All depends on your the imagination, and then you have to catch up with the academic research, up to date. That's why I'm not teaching you the case study, but I'm teaching you up-to-date, current, state-of-the-art research, academic research. Oh, don't you have to teach me the case, Harvard case, so that it's going to be fancy and then easy to understand as a case by case by case. But come on, the period or era of case study has gone, right? It's a history. Nowadays, you have to be able to catch up with the current up-to-date research. And this kind of research is not that hard. It is easy and fun to read up, okay? At least the introduction part or abstract part, the initial part, easy to understand. That's why I'm bringing it to you. It's not used right now. It's going to be used in 10 years horizon down the road. So that's why it's going to be helpful for your career. Let me move on. All right. So or sure, written language also matters. The readability of financial report matters, right? Readability, easy to read. helps you to go a long way. Difficult to read? No chance. Okay? Whenever you write any essays, I tell you and emphasize, your conclusion has to come at the first sentence, first word. Right away, punchline, and then here's why, Don't bring and drag down your conclusion sentence to the last. Why? Because of the readability. Remember always, those investors and then your bosses are extremely busy. No time to go to the last sentence. Bring it to the upfront. Okay? Neoclassical finance guy would say, who cares? It doesn't matter whichever way you write it. The smartest investors, will always catch whatever you mean. Omnipotent guys will remember you. But in reality, nobody is omnipotent, right? We have limited attention. And impatient, your bosses will be like pissed off, right? Investors will drop and dump the stock, right? If you miscommunicate. Readability matters, right? This is another reason I emphasize so much about the management communication. Take that class, right? Before you graduate, as soon as possible. Okay? It helps your GPA as well, because you will be easy communicator. Why don't you take it right away? Pan. It's not 쌍판떼기 in Korean terminology. 쌍판떼기 is about like a good, 漂亮 kind of things. No, it's about your 판단력 or like your IQ, right? Again, the neoclassical guys were like, no way, right? You're just another, nuts and bolts in the management, irreplaceable. But the behavioral finance guys found it. The CEO's IQ matters in creating shareholder values. How? Well, some researchers in Scandinavia, they studied with the IQ big data of the CEOs. Holy cow, IQ is one private information for the rest of the world, right? Especially in Korea or America, right? But in Scandinavia, I told you before, they have this kind of unique culture that the group-wise the culture is there, right? Community-based structure, culture is there. So that you are nobody, but don't believe that you are better than anybody else, right? On average, the group is better than you. So you have to disclose all your information about your income or IQ or your penalties that you had to pay for your driving ticket or whatever, your wealth, right? How much you have. Disclose it, okay? It's a shame, but they're gonna help you in the case that you have, you are in the below certain threshold wealth level. The social, social welfare is there. The system will help you. So you have to disclose everything. The CEO IQ is disclosed. And that's, this kind of thing. Smarter CEOs drive the shareholder value higher. It's found out over there. The Korean jaebals, right? Or the big corporations in Korea, they always say, we want to benchmark Wallenberg in Sweden, the Scandinavian culture. Good. If you want to follow the Wallenberg kind of, Swedish kind of culture, let's do it to the hardcore. And then let's disclose your IQ and my IQ and everybody's IQ and everybody's income and everybody's wealth to the full. Like naked. You want to do that? I bet you those Korean corporations will be the first one to say, no, that's my precious information. But they're doing it in Scandinavia. Are you ready to follow that? Seriously. Don't tell me lies. How can we measure and quantify has been the issue, but big data enabled us to do that. All right. Irrational managers. How does the perspective of irrational managers help us to understand the behavior of the CEOs? After all, business is about risk taking. So anything that affects the CEO's risk preference is a big issue for companies' risk management, right? It's also a big issue for the bankers as well, because you want to have a precise understanding of the portfolio companies that you're managing. If you are a private equity fund managers and venture capitalist, you want to have a better understanding of the companies that you hold in your portfolio. Okay? The CEO, is he more of a risk preferring guy or risk avoider, right? We want to see that. Overconfident guy versus not. Narcissistic guy versus not, right? Weakly governed firms are more likely to be swayed by CEO's personal risk preference above and beyond economic optimization. Weak governance, what does that mean? Check and balance, right? The CEO's ultimate powerful guy, that's bad governance, right? How much can the shareholders say, that's my precious money that you are screwing up? You get out of the company as a CEO. Kick out. That's strong governance. Okay? The Korean media, news media, brainwash you guys to believe wrongly that the strong governance is about the CEOs having strong power, ultimate power, so that I would not be afraid of any institutional investors getting into me and then kicking me out. That's a strong governance, they say. But I say, no, that's a weak governance. The fact that the situation that foreign investors or institutional investors being able to get into the management and say something about the CEO, you get out of there. That is strong governance, because those shareholders can maximize, the help maximize the shareholder value, because the CEOs can try to screw up the company to maximize his or her own personal utility, right? Let's get down. I should not get excited. All right, weakly governed firms, right? Obviously, we Korean companies or less developed capital market companies, we suffer from weak governance problem. Those CEOs, they have ultimate superpower about managing the company's strategic direction to this way or that way, or screwing up in their own ways, right? How can we discipline the CEO, monitor properly, and force this guy to do something about it? Okay? That's a big issue. So that's why understanding for this kind of capital markets like Korea, more precisely understanding about the CEO's biases helps us a lot. We want to know precisely about what kind of guys are sitting over there, right? Is he more overconfident or not? Excessively overconfident or not? Okay? Lack of confidence or not? We want to have good understanding about it. And for that purpose, the CEO has to be more communicative than not, so that we could be able to better understand the company and then his or her character and traits. The thing is, Samsung is so much secretive about the character of the CEOs or the guys in the head. 이재용, 재용이 형, I want to know more about you. I don't necessarily hate you, but I want to have better understanding about your character, the trait. Why don't you give me the chance to better understand you? 의선이 형 is better than that because he's more forthcoming to the media, and then we can measure that somehow. Oh, okay, to this direction or that direction. But the Samsung is so much secretive in their culture. That's not good. You have to be more transparent about it, more outspoken. Come up to the media and tell us about you. Don't be afraid. Okay? Don't be afraid. I'm going to guide you if you want me to do that. But they are too much secretive. That's a problem. Come on. Be more forthcoming. Okay? Transparent. Okay? Take the courage. That's it. I should shut my mouth up. Anyway, research about fund managers is also useful in this respect because any mutual fund or hedge fund is like a company in and of itself, right? Mutual fund itself is a company. This mutual fund manager is a CEO. Very simple company. The business is about stock investment, right? The performance of the company is very simply measured, right? The mutual fund price itself tells us about the performance of this CEO called fund manager, right? So mutual fund research is there, hedge fund research is there because of this easy laboratory setting, natural laboratory setting. Fund managers' character traits is vastly analyzed these days. We're using big data approach. A lot of things to do in this area. Okay, very, very interesting and exciting area, by the way. Now, the first thing that I want to tell you about is narcissism. Of course, versus overconfidence, right? There is a famous paper in Top Journal by Chatterjee and Hambrick. It's all about me, right? That's narcissism of the CEOs. Many of you will be confused between narcissism versus overconfidence. Don't get confused. They are different concepts. I'm going to test you about it in your final exam. Overconfidence, we're going to touch on that issue later on. It's about being optimistic without no reason. 근자감. Without no reason, you're just being optimistic about whatever future that may unfold before you. And also overconfidence is about being overly precise about your expectation. Okay? Surely that must be it, like this. Okay? It's whether it is about you or not, doesn't matter. But whenever you predict something, you give a narrow expectation range, the precision. Okay? Whereas you can be wrong many times that way and be surprised. Oh, I'm wrong somehow. That's overconfidence. Narcissism is all about me, and personal you, yourself, right? Is a very important concept for your social life, 인간관계, right? Understanding your boss and your subordinates and your friends around you. Why is that guy behaving that way? Why did he or she tell this thing like that way, right? Why does it bother me so much? Oftentimes, it's because of his or her narcissism. If it is not your own narcissism, okay? The world is full of me. There are some people, it's like this, right? It shows up in your language pattern. The use of me in place of us is there. The first person pronoun, 1인칭 대명사. First person pronoun, the relative frequency of me words as opposed to us words, right? Myself, I, my, me, mine, myself. So great. As opposed to ourselves and then us and our team, right? The relative frequency of word usage shows the degree of narcissism. I always feel like somebody's watching me. That's a famous song by Michael Jackson. Has to do with the narcissism. Yeah. I want them to watch me. 관종, 어그로를 끄는. Yes. Yes. That has to do with the degree of narcissism. So during childhood, it's natural to have narcissism as we learn about ourselves, right? It's a self-protection mechanism. Okay? You have to be narcissistic to a certain degree, right? Everybody is narcissistic to a certain degree, honestly speaking. It's the reality. If you believe that you are never narcissistic, 99% of the chance you are wrong. If this disappoints you, I'm sorry about it, but you are narcissistic. Okay? We are narcissistic to a certain degree. So for some people, as we grow, people experience betrayal and and we experience criticism from the social relationships. My closest friend, ex-friend, stabbing behind my back. Okay? that kind of betrayal happens, and then it builds that kind of bad experience. Such a bad experience make them turn the attention regressively towards themselves. After betrayal, you get into yourselves like, miserable experience, and then look into myself, and never want to go outside, and then focus much more into you. And the self-protection mechanism makes you more narcissistic about yourself, okay? Some narcissists seem overconfident, but these two are different concepts, okay? I'm gonna test you on this one. Wait for that. Promise you. Am I narcissistic? Okay, are you self-centered? Do you feel superior to others? Are you stubborn? You see this picture over here. You're the cat, Nyangi, and then inside the mirror, I'm a lion in me. I find myself as a lion. Narcissism. Okay, 거울아 세상에서 누가 제일, like the mirror, who is the most beautiful person in the world? And the mirror says, oh queen, you are the most beautiful. Yeah, you're narcissistic. Right. And you feel like you have a sense of privilege. Chances are you are more narcissistic than not. Okay. Do you feel lack of empathy with others? You don't feel empathy with other suffering people. You are more narcissistic then. Do you think you can manipulate certain situations, most of the situations, so that you can tell a lie and then you can completely cover up? You are narcissistic. Okay? The eyes of truth are always watching you. You cannot deceive everybody all the time. But if you believe that you can deceive and manipulate the situation somehow because you're smarter, wake up. You are narcissistic. Okay? Do you feel jealous many times? You are narcissistic. Do you crave for compliments? You want everybody to compliment upon you? You're narcissistic. 관종이세요. It's like and you want more attention from others? You're narcissistic. 관종이세요. Okay, welcome to the party. Okay, you hate to go get honest. Do you hate getting honest feedback from others? You're narcissistic. And then you get easily hurt from others emotionally. 상처받았어. 마상. It's like 마음에 상처받아 easily. You're narcissistic. By this, you realize that almost everybody in Korea are narcissistic. Not just in Korea, but everybody in the world is narcissistic. You realize that, right? 마음에 상처받아. Okay. Easily bored and constantly seeking sensation. You're narcissistic. Okay? Everybody is narcissistic to a certain degree. You realize that, okay? And by this time, I typically ask the audience, my students, and ask, how much do you, here is the degree, okay? I'm going to introduce a book to you over here by this guy, Rethinking Narcissism, Dr. Craig Malkin's book. And he suggests and brings this, he's a Harvard psychiatrist, by the way. And then in the book, he brings a scale of narcissism, okay? And there's a survey that you have to answer in this book. I strongly suggest you to read that book. That's a book of my life. 인생의 book kind of things, right? If I read that book in my 20s or 30s, my life could have been a lot easier than this, right? But here's the score. After going through the surveys, there's a scale from 0 to 10. 10, like this. And on average, people's narcissism score would be 5. And then there's a normal distribution curve like this. Okay? Integer value 6, 7, 8, 9. Come on. 6. I should have said 7, 8, 9, 10. And 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So narcissism degree is there. people are narcissistic to a certain degree, on average 5 narcissism, okay? And then I ask my students and say, how much, right? What would be my narcissism score, Andy Kim's narcissism score? And then most of the time they say, oh, you must be 10 narcissistic. And I'm worried about that kind of guys because number one, degree 10 or 9, above 10 or 9, these guys need to go to mental institution, 정신병원. They have to be stuck into that. We have to put them into that jail, not the jail, but into the mental institution. These are the guys, extreme narcissistic guys. Narcissism disorder, we call it. Okay, I'm not over there. Okay, so my narcissism score actually turns out to be 7 over here. Okay. I have a story to tell you about this. If you read that book, right, it says like this: narcissism can be a driver, good driver, if you use it in a positive direction. It gives you the energy. It gives you the energies to stand out from the rest of the public, rest of the group, and stand out, stick out yourself, and then outshine, outstand. You know how to draw attention, like what I do over here, bringing my YouTube lecture, right? Everybody is doing the video lecture in different ways, but I open it up to the YouTube, right? Partly because I'm 관종, I know. But the positive side of it is I try to bring high quality lectures somehow to the best of my ability. Okay, I don't know whether you perceive my lecture as the world's best lecture or not. I hope you, but I try to bring my best energy to bring best performance in front of you. Okay, you benefit out of it, I benefit myself with it, right? My narcissism helps not only you, but also you as a student, right? So narcissism has some positive part of it. It enables you to go through whatever difficulty, prolonged period of difficulty. It makes you enables you to endure long-term difficult situation, right? 고문해, it's like somebody may torture you. If you think about the 민주투사, like those the fighters, freedom fighters, right? Let's get back to myself over here. PhD, okay? PhD, doctoral degree, takes long time to finish it. 춥고 배고파. It's like you get barely minimum compensation, minimum wage for 5 years in your early career, okay? In your late 20s, right? And that with your wife and spouse with you and your daughters and sons. It's a prolonged period of low income. You have to endure that difficult period. And the narcissism is the one that enables you to drive through this and go through the difficult time like this. And then it will be like, my precious ideas to my dream. I have to pursue my career dream, and it is worth the sacrifice, right, of this long period of painful period. You remember those 5-year period? That's the time my friends in the industry were earning 수억 원, 수십억 원. Like if they were like 변호사 or like lawyers or whatever, they must have had a hugely party time as hedge fund managers or lawyers, whatever. That is the time they were able to accumulate their wealth. I'm foregoing that part because I have my dream. I have a dream. Yeah, to pursue that, right? Poor my wife, I know. She must have undergone together with me in the cold, cold winter. But I had a lack of empathy, I guess. It is worth going through this pain. I'm gonna, it's worth the pain. Wait for me, right? Wait for me. Thank God my wife has been able to endure that part. Okay, this is partly why I say to my students, don't go to PhD education, right? It's like you have to be very narcissistic. Those period of prolonged test preparation and this degree preparation requires a lot of narcissism. Okay, you have to be full of yourself. Okay, and then the book says the Nobel Prize winners, right? Nobel Prize winners, their narcissism score is 8 or 7. They are PhD guys. Okay, the distribution, I should have said like this. Lord, its tail, right? Yeah, you may say, only if Andy were a little bit more narcissistic, he could have won the Nobel Prize later. I don't care. I don't want to win that, because some of these Nobel Prize winners, like John Nash, right? He ended up in, having schizophrenia. No good. In The Beautiful Mind, the movie, watch that movie. He's an MIT professor. And then he says what? In the first lecture of his career, right? He says to the student, you guys, I don't know. I don't care whether you understand it or not, but here is my theory, blah, 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 blah. I don't care anything about you. That's lack of empathy. How could you be so cruel about the students? Because I am narcissistic and I am great. That's this part. But for me, I care about you. I care about your success. So that's why I'm not less narcissistic over here. And the smarter students actually turns out to be more narcissistic. Does it tell anything about you? Yeah. You have to know about yourself, realize about yourself. You are more likely to be here. And narcissist like narcissist. And then birds of a feather flock together. That's another thing. Strange thing happening. You're naturally attracted, gravitated to the people who are more narcissistic. And the next thing I want to tell you is here is one thing I thank God about it. Okay, my wife's narcissism score is 3, number 3. She read the same book and did the same survey, and she was over here. I have to draw this curve over here, symmetry, and we over there. So if we take the average, we are our family balances wonderfully, thankfully. How does that help? Well, during my PhD education, important tests has been there, and then whenever there is an important threshold that I have, the hurdle that I have to pass, right before the hurdle challenging period, my brain works like crazy, and then there's a dopamine heavily going on, and the sparks up like crazy here and there. The idea goes on, but not just all kinds of interesting idea goes on, but also unnecessarily it lightens up, the flashes up to the narcissistic part of myself lightens up, and then it feels like everybody is watching me. And then all my professors seem to be watching about my small detail of what I did. What if my professors paid attention to my small mistake here and there? And I talked to my wife, and it's, you know what, honey, I did this kind of small mistake in mentioning this and that in the seminar or in my in the classroom. I'm afraid my professor must have seen me doing this, and what if he or she perceives me as a stupid guy and then rejects me in the next test. Then there comes my wife. You know, honey, don't worry. You are nobody. And everybody is busy, and the professor is busy with his or her own work. So get some life, Andy. They don't care about you. You are not the center of the world. Why? Because for her, right? Nobody cares about her, and then she believes she's nobody, to too much of a degree, right? She's too humble, right? And then that's actually a rational being, right? Rational human being. She is very rational, and then stays away from narcissism. And then she correctly perceives that nobody cares about anybody else's work, right? So that gives life to myself, right? Oh, I'm relieved. They don't care about me, and I'm nobody, right? Let's get released. That's good. And then I can focus much more onto my study, right? Instead of focusing about myself, right? Also, another thing that I am thankful for my God is my religion, right? I don't enforce you to on a certain religion, but the thing is, the religion helps me to get away from my narcissism. Okay? 나 자신을 비우고 신으로 채운다. They said, right? Emptying myself is about getting away from my narcissistic bias, right? So that I will be more humble. That's where the religion matters. And I'm telling you to have your own religion that way. So that I know a lot of you smart guys are very narcissistic. 서울대, 연고대, or like Harvard, and then global 경영학과 or 성대, right? These guys are more likely to be narcissistic. 조국, all right, of course. 386, of course, 586. Those 민주화 세력, your father's generation, couldn't be more narcissistic. They don't know they are, nasty sometimes. They are hypocritical. They don't realize that they are. Why? They're so much narcissistic. That narcissism, strong narcissism, enabled them to go through that torturing process during the 1980s. Those dictators were torturing them and then forcing them and they put them into jail. They survived thanks to those narcissism. For our great value of democracy, I can go through all these tortures that enabled them. But there's a drawback. Nowadays, we see that cost of it. Okay? They just don't realize it. Get some life. Get some life. We are all narcissistic. Okay? So that's one thing I want to tell you. 충격! 박근혜 거울방의 비밀 is like in the previous regime of Korea, right? 박근혜 is the ex-president of Korea who was more narcissistic than not, right? One of the things where I could see that is the report like this in the media. Whenever she goes to other places, right, visiting different countries, she wanted to be surrounded by the mirrors in her hotel room, not seeing anybody else. She wanted to live in her own cocoon. Why? Because she was daughter of Park Chung-hee, dictator of Korea, who led the Korea from the ashes to economic development and then got assassinated. After the assassination, before the assassination, she was treated more like a princess, holy princess, right? She started to live in her own cocoon. And after the assassination, her neighbors, right, her friends betrayed brutally, right? Those flatterers around her all of a sudden turned back and then criticized her. Such a betrayal, bad experience made her to live in her own smaller cocoon, more like that. So that's perhaps why she wanted to be surrounded by mirrors instead of people who could give some fair feedback to her. Oh, by the way, here I told you about the distribution of the narcissism scores like this, right? Extreme narcissism 9-10 should go to the mental institution, and then the other extreme 0 and 1, they also should go to mental extreme. They're both crazy. Okay, one is more of a narcissistic disorder, so that they don't sympathize anybody else, right? They are more likely to be a serial killer, right? Killing people and then depriving of their lives. They feel joy out of it because it's like, I don't know, it's boosting up their self-esteem somehow. Lack of empathy. extreme degree. And they are more likely to become a dictator. Dictator for the purpose of my holy idea, like communist, right? Or Nazi, right? Hitler or Stalin kind of guys. For the holiness of their ideas, killing millions of people is nothing. That's narcissism. 민주화를 위해서는 수백만이 죽여도 it's like for my holy ideas, millions of people can be killed. That's narcissism, right? And then the other side, we call it echo. And these guys in trouble because, whenever if these two guys meet each other, this guy will kill this guy. And these guys are just the simple followers. And they have no self over there. And then they have no opinion of their own. And then, it's like the masochism versus sadism in that disorder is happening. So that we should not put these two guys in the same room. That's something I have to tell you. Read this book. It's a very interesting one. And then it tells you a lot about the behavior of the people, your bosses, right? I told you about, Nobel Prize winners are more likely to be 8 or 7. And then the professors belong to 7 group or 6 groups, right? Those great achievers in business as well. Some of them are narcissistic, then not, right? And then one of the disordered behavior on this part of the group, right? And then smart guys, supposedly, right? Elite school guys, they fall into this 6, 7, 8 or 7, 8 or 9, 10. 신림동, if you go there, a lot of crazy guys were there. Why? Over here. And then the disorder is there. 갑질, right? You see a lot of torai guys, like a crazily behaving guys, and say, easily get pissed off and say what? How dare you treat me like this? 내가 누군지 알아? That's because of his or her narcissism. Okay? It could be your boss, it could be your friends, it could be your neighbors, right? Solution, whenever you face this kind of narcissist, what do you have to do? Run away. 36개 주랭랑 is the best strategy. Okay? Get away from those narcissistic disorder guys. Okay? Does that tell you have to get away from me, Andy? Maybe. But I try not to be narcissistic. At least I know that I'm narcissistic. But there are some people who doesn't know they are narcissistic and behave like, how dare you treat me like this? No. There's no way of curing that narcissism. Okay? If that goes to 8 or 9 degree, you will get hurt. They don't know. Okay? The need to get back over here. The only situation you have to be not running away is whenever you are the parents, right? Parent and son or daughter relation. Okay? Family relation. Your family member could be narcissistic like this. Then there's no way of running away from this. So that's why you have to educate them to be less narcissistic. Bring it back, bring it over here, right? Good luck. But other than that, you have to run away. Okay? Narcissistic, you feel like, 재수없어. There's a reason why. And then, for the narcissistic people, the only way is to learn about it themselves. And then by religion, maybe, get away from the narcissism somehow. That's it. Long lecture. I hope you like it, by the way. Helps your social life, by the way. 인사가 만사다. Why? Because so many people are narcissistic and they don't realize it and bothers you. You are full of yourself, let go of yourself, and rely on absolute being, like holding on to the religion. What should you do if you meet narcissistic people? Run away. Yeah, right. And then what? Narcissism versus overconfidence. Overconfidence is about having tight confidence interval in expectation. It is different from narcissistic disorder, narcissism. Interpret everything, narcissism, interpret everything in self-centered manner. 자기중심적이에요. Right. How could you be so self-centered? Yeah, everybody is self-centered anyway, but people, some of you, are more self-centered than others, right? Empathy level lowers down and speed of recognizing social situation. 쟤 왜 저렇게 모르지? Like a 형광등, or it's like a slow in 눈치 까는 것. It's like a slow in 눈치 까, right? Slow in catching the atmosphere of the group. I am one of those because, obviously, narcissism, guys, is slow. So I have to recognize that. I try to it. Gets down. Immature personality happens there. Okay. Once they feel that their ego was hurt, they take the revenge to the utterly insane way. Okay. A lot of professors do that. Unfortunately, I know we have to recognize that. This is another reason I tell my students, try to learn from the experts in the industry. Go to get internship fast and get contact with the guys in the field. You have to learn from the best people in the industry. 근묵자흑, 근주자적, right? Those who get close to, you learn from your neighbors. So if you are close to narcissistic people, you will become more narcissistic. But it does not help your career. So go to the industry and learn from the experts in the industry yourself. Another reason why you have to get internship first, in your first year or second year as well as last year, right? Don't wait until the last year. For male, narcissism causes more stress hormone called cortisol in the body. Jealousy burns up. 질투의 화신. 암 걸려요. It's like you get more cancers, like hurt your body. Okay, get away from that narcissism. Narcissistic leaders gets back to the CEOs. Those narcissistic leaders are known to be more cold-blooded. 냉혈동물. It seems like more charismatic. Oh, 멋져요, charisma. Oh, charisma 쩐다. It's like seems like a great leader, right? But that turns out to be more narcissistic. Exploitative in relations, like 착취를 더해. Like they don't know that they are exploiting because they are lacking empathy. They don't sympathize you. That's a problem. Okay, and they are arrogant. Okay, more arrogant. They're full of themselves. Is it more of a confidence? That's different from that justifiable confidence, right? Lack of empathy. That's different from overconfidence. And then, doesn't the overconfidence cause narcissism? No, instead, narcissist self-esteem is weak, as it turns out. So he or she tries to have positive reinforcement about himself or herself from others in the social situation, right? Lack of confidence or lack of self-esteem is a problem, okay? Narcissists believe that he or she has to be the greatest, and then they have to be the greatest, the 돋보여. They have to be the outshine guys among the population, or among the group. Otherwise, they would get pissed off easily. They have to be the smartest. They have to be the coolest, and they have to be obsessed. They are obsessed to be better than others, right? Appearance. I care about the appearance, and I have to outstand everyone. 피곤해. It's like I get tired, right? Also, he or she tells himself or herself so. She always tell herself, I am the greatest. I have to be the great guy. Well, there is a positive side of this. This drives you to endure hardships, right? I have to be the great one to achieve my dream. Yes, there's a positive side of it. But 만사중용이 제일이니라. Like you have to be in the middle ground, right? You have to tell yourself as well. When the time comes that he or she realizes that his or her inflated self-image is not supported by the reality, then what happens? He or she starts to torture himself or herself like crazy. Like, oh, how could I get only 99 points out of 100 in the final exam? I should kill myself, or something like that. You must have seen this kind of guy in your high school education. Was it yourself? Saying that what? Really committing suicide, or trying to say that I am not worth living or like this because I got one problem in math, got it wrong. Whereas we ourselves or other people are happily getting 98 out of 100, right? 전교 1등. And then that's number one in our school. Used to be perfect scorer, but trying to kill himself or herself or torture himself or herself simply because he got one question wrong. That's narcissistic, extreme narcissism. Okay, 전교 1등, 전국 1등, all these kind of guys are easily suffering this kind of disease. Okay, 엄친아, 엄친딸, praising. You are used to the praise of other neighbors, right? Even though you yourself superficially you try to be more humble and polite and not to show your arrogance. Like say, I'm nobody. I was just lucky, but deep inside you believe that you're superior, right? Like 전국 1등. If it is not 전국 1등, you're not a human being at all. Like, if you don't go to 의대, 서울의대, you're not a human being. Like this kind of things, right? If it is not, I mean, in my high school days, we were brainwashed like this in our high school. If it is not going to be 서울 법대, that's not even a school like that. That's brainwashing the students to be extremely narcissistic. As it turns out, all the Korean people or education system brainwashes ourselves to be narcissistic. And we don't realize that we are narcissistic. The thing is, there are outspoken narcissistic guys who is more identifiable, but there are a lot more unspoken narcissistic in Korea because we are forced to shut up our mouths, and we are brainwashed as well to appear to be polite and shut up our mouth. So we just don't realize that we ourselves are extreme narcissists, right? So I want you to realize that we are all narcissists in a high degree. If you are GBA guys, watch out, man. Watch out. Self-torturing is another face of narcissism. Okay? You are precious, but get some life, man. One good way of reducing narcissism is patting on your shoulders. You did a good job. Okay? Get some life, man. Right? Yeah. Getting F is okay. Right? Fine. I also got Fs sometimes. Right? Still live my life. Right? Life goes on. And it's more fun. Right? Yeah. And narcissistic CEOs, the symptom of narcissism. Well, linguistic symptom is I, my, me, mine shows up more often than we, us, ours, right? So simply do the text mining and count the relative frequency of I, my, me, mine to all first person pronouns, including I, my, me, mine. Count we, us, ourselves, right? How many times does it show up? Right? Oh, I, my, me, mine, and myself, right? Like to have big face pictures of himself or herself compared to other executives. What do I mean? Well, you can think about it as a 수령님 사진 in North Korea. 김일성 수령님 or Kim Jong-un 동지's face picture should show up like this crazily big, whereas the rest of the people should show up like very small, right? That kind of things happen to annual reports of publicly traded companies. Those narcissistic CEOs, their face pictures like expanded like this, but their CFOs and executives picture small, tiny. That difference tells us about the CEO's narcissism. And also it shows up in their signature. Big signature is a symptom of narcissism. Why? Because I love myself. Yeah, very complicated signature and then big. Yeah. And it shows up between myself and my wife. My wife's signature is very small and very simple. I tell my wife, why don't you have some more interesting shaped and then somewhat bigger sign than that? Huh? And she sticks to that small signature ever since her childhood. And myself, I try to be more like fancy, and then people say like, whoa, your signatures look cool. Yeah, which means you're narcissistic. Oh, okay. Now, and the CEOs, we can see that because nowadays, after Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, they have to do the signature upon the 10K report. Every CEO has to do that signature, and the CFO as well. So that in the same standardized piece of paper, we can measure their size of the signature. And then, as it turns out, the bigger signature, guys, destroys shareholder values more, right? By what? By doing more splashy, attention-drawing M&A deals and whatever investments. They tend to do this kind of attention-drawing investment decisions, which is not necessarily adding shareholder values, like taking over a company that is bigger than your company itself, right? M&A의 귀재시네요. Like you're a genius of M&A. That's more likely saying that you are narcissistic CEO, destroying shareholder value, easily get kicked out in the American setting, right? Fired more often. Yeah, that's Chatterjee and Hambrick's finding. Yes, hello. Narcissism in autograph. Yes, you see this contrast going on. Okay. What are you doing? That's Trump, right? When it comes to narcissistic CEO, who can beat Donald Trump, right? Yeah, this is the guy. Narcissism is not always bad. If narcissism is well directed, the person can achieve something extraordinary, something attention drawing, something good, something great. Yeah. Usually Nobel Prize winners, successful businessmen have reasonable degree of narcissism over there, right? You have to be great. I have to be great because I am Andy Kim, right? But when it comes to Donald Trump, right? And then the negative side of narcissism, extreme degree of narcissism, and then political leaders, right? You may question, why do people tend to have narcissistic leaders, right? Narcissistic leaders. 4 years ago, why did US people elect Donald Trump, that narcissist? And even before that, a couple of years before, why did Korean people elected Park Geun-hye, that narcissistic leader, right? Why? Because during the prolonged period of economic recession or depression or a crisis, after huge crisis, right? People are in despair, and then the structural despair of the society is just a structure that cuts all the hope from the people or in the bottom, right? The general public is in despair. The structure of the society is so disastrous, so that there seems to be no hope. No hope. Then what happens? They become thirsty for hero. Okay, superhero. We hope and pray that the superhero will deliver us from this disaster and deliver us to the Holy Land somehow. Okay, we become thirsty for hero, and the narcissists know how to draw attention from the public, From their younger experience, and then throughout their careers, they have been getting the spotlights, and they know how to get spotlights. Okay, and this is a time, perfect time for this narcissist to show off as a superhero, and then I will be the hero to deliver you to the promised land, right? The longer period suffer from the hardship, economic recession and crisis. The people become more thirsty for superheroes. In Korean terminology, we say 난세가 영웅을 부른다, right? The crisis invite heroes, right? Well, good luck. It ends up with a narcissist leader whose impact may differ case by case, but usually ruinous, so that the crisis invites narcissistic leaders instead of real heroes, right? Fake leaders, fake heroes may show up. Chances are they're more likely to be narcissistic, like Trump. You've seen that after COVID-19 crisis, right? Recent 1 year is good enough of time to realize who is a true hero, right? How could this happen in the United States? How could this happen? Of course, today and then a couple of days before, we've been seeing that election result, right? And then this election loser is not admitting his defeat, right? At least you have to have that dignity to protect the democracy somehow, but they're not doing it. And then the believers in this narcissist, they're crying like crazy, lying on the ground, and this election must be ruined, and then the fake election, I don't believe that. No, come on, wake up. Guess who? Yeah, of course. Here's an example over here. The last 100 words of acceptance speech of their party's national convention for the presidential election in the US in 2016. I collected those transcripts, right? Last 100 words. Why is it why should it be last 100 words? How do you say? This is a part where they will make it more condensed and summarize their ideas. Summarize their ideas to appeal to the general public as as a presidential election candidate, right? They will be condensed, right, in their ideas. So why don't we capture that last 100 words and see which candidate is more narcissistic, which one is using more I, my, me, mine, as opposed to we, us, ourselves kind of things, right? So which is Hillary and which is Trump? Please see it. Do the text mining. Can we guess? Yeah. Let's see, and that, and so have many other sins. They were drawn together by love of country and the selfless passion to build something better for all who follow. That is the story of America, and we begin a new chapter tonight. Yes, the world is watching what we do. Yes, America's destiny is ours to choose. So let's be stronger together, looking to the future with courage and confidence, building a better tomorrow for our beloved children and our beloved country. When we do, America will be greater than ever. Thank you, and may God bless the United States of America. Yeah. Narcissism score 0. Why? Because there was only 5 words of first person pronouns, and they were all plural, right? Not singular. Okay, 0. The next candidate. I choose to recite a different pledge. My pledge reads, I am with you. What? Who is with you? I am with you, the superhero, yeah. The American people, you American people, I am with you. I am your voice. Whoa. So to every parent who dreams for their child and every child who dreams for their future, I say these words to you tonight. I am with you. I will fight for you. 난세가 영웅을 본다. Yeah, you. And I will win you for you. To all Americans tonight, in our cities and towns, I make this promise. We will make America stronger again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you. Narcissism score, 65%. You see that calculation, right? Excluding those slogans, 90%. We will make America great again kind of things, right? Who is it? Quite obvious, right? Quite obvious. Yeah. When we did the same exercise for Korean presidential election, 2012, yeah. 2017, yeah. Text mining saves the day. All right. So next lecture, I'm going to talk about some other biases about the CEOs. It's going to be another vastly exciting lecture as well. So wait for that.